Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're taking local service data and jumping into this totally fascinating dive into how geography, history, and economics collide right under our floors. Most of us don't really think about the intricate network of pipes hidden behind our walls. Well, at least not until something goes disastrously wrong. But today, we're going to use real-world data from a specific New England neighborhood to uncover exactly how our homes interact with the environment around them.
So let's just jump right in and ask, why does a specific coastal neighborhood, like Riverside, Rhode Island, become basically a perfect storm for plumbing failures? I mean, you might think a pipe is just a pipe, regardless of where it is, right? But the reality is that the ground your home sits on, the wind that hits its exterior, and the era in which it was built, all of that completely dictates the lifespan of your infrastructure. We're going to use Riverside as our ultimate case study to see how these invisible forces shape our daily lives.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First up, the perfect plumbing storm. Second, Riverside's big 4 failures. Third, we'll look at Rhode Island plumbing codes. And finally, we'll wrap up with the economics of plumbing. Let's get into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the perfect plumbing storm. Geography meets history in Riverside, Rhode Island. Think about this. A massive chunk of Riverside's housing stock was built way back between 1920 and 1950. So why does that matter to us? Well, the original galvanized steel pipes installed during that massive building boom have a typical lifespan of about 70 to 80 years. If you do the math, that means right now, literally entire blocks of homes are sitting on plumbing systems that have either reached or completely surpassed their expiration dates. It's essentially a ticking time bomb hidden right there in the framing.
And here's where the environment really kicks in. When temperatures drop below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, the geography just absolutely punishes these older homes. Those harsh winds coming right off Narragansett Bay accelerate heat loss like crazy, particularly in older, poorly insulated homes along coastal stretches, like Bullocks Point Avenue. It's not just that it gets cold outside, it's that the coastal wind strips the heat away so rapidly that the pipes and exterior walls and crawl spaces just freeze and burst before the heating system can even try to keep up.
But wait, the stress isn't just coming from the freezing wind above ground, it's coming from below, too. Add in the high water table near low-lying places like Crescent Park, and you get these old stone foundations along the waterfront, settling completely differently than the newer poured concrete foundations you'd find further inland. As these historic stone foundations shift unevenly in the damp soil, they alter the pipe alignment. They are literally pulling rigid plumbing joints apart at the seams, creating these persistent, totally invisible leaks. Moving on to Section 2, Riverside's Big 4 Failures. The symptoms of an aging infrastructure.
So all these environmental and historical factors we just talked about, they combine to create what local pros call the Big 4 failures. First, we've got those frozen and burst pipes in the exterior walls, all thanks to those relentless bay winds. Second, there's this maddeningly low water pressure. Third, we see severe sewer line backups, mainly because century-old trees have spent literally decades sending roots infiltrating into the aging drainage lines. And fourth, water heater failures. In this damp, salty environment, water heaters typically max out at just a 10 to 15-year lifespan before giving out and suddenly flooding your whole basement.
Let's zoom in on that low water pressure for a second, because it's definitely not random. It's the direct result of galvanized pipe corrosion. This is a silent killer of plumbing systems. Over decades, scale builds up inside those original 1920s to 1950s steel pipes, narrowing the interior diameter until the water flow is restricted to a mere trickle. You might just think you have a bad shower head, but really, the entire arterial system of your home is choked up, leading eventually to totally unpredictable and catastrophic blowouts.
All right, Section 3, Rhode Island plumbing codes, how state regulations mandate modern fixes.
So once these inevitable failures happen, you can't just slap some duct tape on it and call it a day. Rhode Island's plumbing code demands proper compliance, and a massive part of that revolves around permits. Only licensed master or journeyman plumbers can pull permits in places like Riverside, and they are legally required for major overhauls, things like installing new water heaters to prevent carbon monoxide risks, whole home repiping, adding new fixtures, and replacing sewer lines. But thankfully, you don't need to deal with the bureaucracy for simple stuff, like fixing a leaky faucet or replacing a toilet.
Now, when you do have to rip out and completely replace those old failing galvanized systems, the code demands modern materials. Homeowners generally face a choice between 2 main options here. On one hand, you have PEX piping. It's highly flexible, which makes it incredibly cost-effective and so much easier to snake through the finished walls of historic homes. On the other hand, there's traditional copper piping. Now, copper carries a higher material cost for sure, but it boasts this proven long-term durability that a lot of homeowners still really prefer.
Guys, here's a really vital takeaway from this explainer. If you live in a pre-1950s Riverside home, any major plumbing renovation might trigger a mandatory lead check. Rhode Island actually banned lead pipes decades ago for very obvious health reasons. So when plumbers open up your walls for repiping, the code often mandates the complete removal of any toxic lead service lines they find in there. It basically turns a simple leak repair into a mandatory public health upgrade.
Which brings us to Section 4, the economics of plumbing, demystifying costs, contracts, and the professional process.
Okay, picture this. Water is literally gushing into your living room. It feels like absolute chaos, right? But what does it actually cost to fix a century of infrastructure wear and tear? Well, the professional emergency process is actually a very calm, structured three-step method. First, an immediate dispatch based on a diagnostic phone call. Second, an on-site diagnosis resulting in a written estimate that you absolutely must approve. And third, the actual repair and verification. This whole structure is designed to stop the damage fast while giving you total pricing transparency before a single wrench is ever turned. To really decode that estimate, you need the baseline numbers. In the Providence and Riverside area, you should expect to pay somewhere between $100 and $200 per hour for a licensed professional. On top of that, there's usually a $50 to $100 trip fee just to get their fully stocked truck to your front door. And listen, if your 80-year-old pipe decides to finally burst at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, brace yourself, because those weekend, middle-of-the-night emergencies will easily cost you up to twice as much.
Now this brings us to one of my absolute favorite industry secrets. It's a game changer that really empowers you as a homeowner. It's called the 1-3-5 rule. For standard plumbing jobs, the materials should account for roughly 1/3 of your total bill, while labor makes up the remaining 2/3. So think about it. If a replacement part costs $100, your total bill should be somewhere around $300. Knowing this baseline ratio helps you instantly spot wildly inflated material markups or overpriced labor.
So using that pricing knowledge plus a few golden rules is going to protect your wallet and your property value. To avoid getting scammed when you're in a total panic, always try to get multiple written estimates if time allows. Always verify their Rhode Island master plumbing license. Remember, an unlicensed worker literally can't pull those mandatory permits we talked about. Demand detailed breakdowns of labor, materials, and disposal fees. And the absolute golden rules: never pay 100% up front and entirely avoid contractors who show up and only accept cash. Just don't do it.
When you actually look closely at a local plumbing business's playbook, it all clicks. It's amazing when you put it all together. Understanding the geographical stressors on your home, knowing the hidden signs of corrosion, and grasping that 135 rule, it means you are no longer at the mercy of a random emergency. You're an informed homeowner. You're equipped with the facts and ready to make smart, cost-effective decisions about your property.
I want to leave you with something to really think about today. Armed with what you now know about coastal winds, shifting historic foundations, and that silent, decades-long buildup of scale and original pipes, what's really going on behind your walls right now? Are you living in a modernized fortress? Or is your home quietly hiding a 70-year-old failure just waiting for the next deep freeze? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, stay curious out there.